Here now a man who says failing to raise the debt ceiling might actually be beneficial. Republican California Congressman Devin Nunes. Congressman Nunes, it's a pleasure. Welcome to Freedom Watch.
Hey, Judge, thanks for having me on. It's great to be with you.
Thank you. Likewise. Congressman, you have stated that it might actually be a good thing if the debt ceiling did not go up and the government was forced to live within its means. And I agree with you. But how many of your fellow Republicans in the House of Representatives agree with you?
Well, let me tell you, Judge, how I came to this conclusion, because, of course, the left is taking this and saying that that we have these crazy Republicans, radicals that want to shut the government down, blah, blah, blah. The reality is this, that we met with Secretary Geithner about a month ago, those of us on the Ways and Means Committee. And I actually asked them, look, I've heard your chicken little argument, Secretary Geithner, about that if we don't raise the debt ceiling, that the economy will crash and it will be the Congress's fault, et cetera, et cetera. But I said, let me pose another question for you. I said, what if we just, why do we even have a debt limit if every a year or year and a half or 2 years, we're just going to raise it indefinitely? So you're saying that interest rates will skyrocket if we default on the debt? Well, what happens if we just have no debt ceiling and just let the debt go on in infinity? Then what would happen? He says, well, obviously, he kind of got around eventually to the point and admitted that interest rates would go up. And I said, well, we can't have this both ways. So, we have to get spending under control, because at the time, as you know, President Obama and the White House was asking just for a clean debt limit increase.
Right.
That will not pass the Congress.
Do you think that the mentality represented by Secretary Geithner, which I think we can comfortably say is shared by the President, is shared by Vice President Biden, is shared by your colleagues who are Democrats in the House, and is shared by Harry Reid and his colleagues in the Senate, even recognizes the long-term pernicious nature of debt, recognizes that 10,000 baby boomers a day are retiring and are entering Social Security and Medicare, recognizes that the system is so broke that if it isn't fixed, we'll have some sort of involuntary bankruptcy thrust upon us, which will be far worse than not raising the debt ceiling. Do they contemplate that, Congressman Nunes?
What I believe, Judge, is that what they want to do is they're basically just in full re-election mode. And they just don't want to have to deal with this, which is why they came to us with this, let's just increase the debt ceiling until after the next election. But as you said, and as you rightfully point out, for those of us who have been following these entitlements very closely, the President is not being helpful in this, because the American people are still not there yet in terms of comprehending the seriousness of this debt crisis problem.
Right.
And so if we don't have the President of the United States fully engaged, and I thought that the new senator from Wisconsin, Senator Johnson, made a good point the other day. Look, when your business is going broke, you don't just send in your lower level people to have a few meetings every few weeks. This is unacceptable. The President should be fully engaged in this. He should be there talking to the American public, right, explaining what we have to do to fix Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security.
Yeah, I got to tell you, Congressman Nunes, I really thought that Senator Johnson struck a raw nerve when he said the President can't phone it in. And I think a lot of Democrats, as we speak, are probably criticizing the President. I know you're a Republican. I know you're in California. I know the House has been off for a week. Do you have the remotest idea why the President is not involved? Because Vice President Biden doesn't seem to be able to get to first base in these meetings trying to reach a compromise.
Yeah, Judge, and it's even worse than that. So last week, we got called into the White House for this, just this showboat meeting where we all walked in, all the Republicans came in, we met in the White House. And look, I'm not saying I'm glad that he invited us over, and I'm glad we had a chance to talk, but it was almost like it was made for TV. It was all phony. You had Secretary Geithner sitting there, the President sitting there with our leadership, Speaker Boehner and all. It's just all phony stuff. And then the guy that's negotiating, supposedly on behalf of the President, Vice President Biden,
right,
he was nowhere in sight. He wasn't even there. So
wow,
how can you have the guy that's supposed to be in the room negotiating and he doesn't show up to the meeting with the Republicans who control the House of Representatives? This stuff just doesn't make any sense. And it's like Senator Johnson said, there's no common sense. If you're in the business world and the real world, we should be all hands on deck trying to solve these problems today.
One would think so, Congressman Nunes. We appreciate you joining us. Someday we'll find out why the president's not
Absolutely.
involved, and someday we'll find out if anybody really believes in basic economics 101. But I don't think that day is going to be very soon. Senator Nunes, Congressman Nunes, it's a pleasure. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Judge, as always.
Meanwhile, some Senate